Bonjour. Thank you for joining us today for this exciting program. Missouri's connections with France go back at least 286 years, with the founding of St. Genevieve in 1735 and St. Louis in 1764 by French explorers and traders. France has steadfastly been one of Missouri's most important trading partners, and we are fortunate to have significant investment from French conglomerates such as Saint-Gobain, Biomérieux, Forestier, and Schneider Electric. Along with our good friends from the Alliance Française, the World Affairs Council is honored to host Consul General Guillaume Lacroix in this virtual format. Consul General Lacroix is a great friend of the Midwest and Missouri specifically, having visited our state multiple times. We will be recording today's presentation, and you will have the opportunity to submit questions via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We have not enabled the raise your hand function, so please use the Q&A box. It is my pleasure to introduce Isabel Heidberger, the Executive Director of the Alliance Française de Saint-Louis.
I have the wrong logo underneath me. I'm part of the World's Affair today. Bonjour. Thank you very much to Dennis and World's Affair St. Louis for inviting me, and Consul Lacroix for putting up with me today one more time. I am Isabel Heidberger, the Executive Director of the Alliance Française de Saint-Louis, quite by accident, a teacher at the Alliance by vocation, and the Honorary Consul of France in St. Louis by passion. I'd like to share with you for a second what is an honorary consul, because if there are a lot of French people listening to us today, this is important for you to know. It is a go-between, most of the time a resource in the best of cases for French citizens in crisis or simply with questions who happen to be in the St. Louis area and the proper authorities. Emergencies and questions range from the terribly sad and tragic, I had to seal a coffin for a baby boy about a year and a half ago, to the classic and interesting, can I renew my passport in St. Louis? Usually followed by, why not? How do I get a visa? Hospital translations, fender benders, lost papers, life certificates. Yes, I do have the power to declare someone alive, though not on the phone. Helping someone find ancestors who fought in Napoleonic wars, etc. And my favorite, the sometimes touching yet mildly bizarre. I just sold all my worldly possessions for the love of a French woman whom I cannot get to due to COVID-19 and who I just met another man. Please help me get to her. Or my daughter wants to have her birthday in Euro Disney next weekend. How do I get visas? Should we take toilet papers with us on our next trip to France? I have heard all those. In all these situations, I cannot help but be humbled by the pain, feeling of helplessness, or simply the need to have someone point you in the right direction. And most of the time, it's towards Guillaume. My deepest gratitude to Guillaume, who thought me worthy of the honor of being honorary consul and showed me what it was, what a good consul could be, should be. I'm trying. Merci, tu vas me manquer. Thank you, we're gonna miss you. Guillaume Lacroix.
Bonjour, bonjour Saint-Louis. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dennis, for the introduction, and also Isabel for being the French consul in St. Louis, and also for being the director of the Alliance Française of St. Louis, because France, the French-speaking world, the francophilie, the francophonie, to me, are part of the same galaxy. Yes, the first responsibility of a consul in Chicago or a consul in St. Louis, is to look after the French community, the people who carry a passport. But I believe what is more important, or at least equally important, is for a consul to bring connections, to look after not only the nationals, but also our friends, our allies from America, and in particular in the St. Louis area and Missouri. We are part of the same family. We may speak different languages, we may have different citizenship, different backgrounds, different histories. But at the end of the day, we have so much more in common. And that is the essence of my job in Chicago for the Midwest. That is the essence of the job of Isabel in St. Louis in Missouri, is to bring more connections, to inject more positiveness, to focus on what brings us together and less on what brings us apart. And that's what we're trying to do. It's a great honor for me to be with you. Unfortunately, I'm here in Chicago. I would have loved to be in St. Louis this afternoon. And now you understand why Isabel was selected by the French government to be the consul in St. Louis. She is very effective, and I'm very grateful for her to be our consul. And I'm saying this because maybe not everyone knows, and I didn't know until not too long ago, France had a consulate in St. Louis so long before it had a consulate, or she had a consulate here in Chicago. It has to do with what Denise said in the introduction. France and Missouri, St. Louis area, Saint Genevieve, Port Girardeau, and other old mines, and so many places in the so-called Illinois country. This is an history that pre-existed the United States, that pre-existed the French Republic. And we happen to be, America and France, the oldest allies. And we supported you during your revolution, your war of independence, and you came to our rescue in the 20th century with the French to save us. And that makes the connection so special. And we have to be thankful to George Washington, to Lafayette, but also to the first Americans in the St. Louis area, Native Americans, French Americans, African Americans, American Americans that merged into the melting pot and were part of the big history of America. Today in Chicago is the anniversary of the city, and the person that is considered the non-native founder of Chicago is a certain Mr. Jean-Baptiste Pointe du Sable. And Mr. Jean-Baptiste Pointe du Sable was a son of a Haitian man, a Frenchman, and an African woman. And he was from what we call now Haiti. And while he founded Chicago, if you will, he also got married in Cahokia, just a few miles away from St. Louis. So we are here not to talk about history, we're talking about the present and the future. But I believe it is important as part of the context to remind of the very special historic connections that bind us. When I was a kid, I didn't get the chance to travel to the United States, but I traveled in reading books and in looking at maps, staring at maps, daydreaming, looking at maps. And I remember so fondly of the dots, Saint Louis, Détroit, and of course, La Nouvelle-Orléans. But Saint Louis struck me because Saint Louis has the name of towns that exist in France, in Alsace, but also on Réunion Island in the Indian Ocean, or in Senegal. And it says a lot, I think, about, again, what we have and what we have in common. Let's talk about the present. The present is not particularly rosy, but it's been almost a year now since we have been in the pandemic, and hopefully this is going to be the beginning of the end. We cross our fingers. We believe in science. We believe in the outstanding progress of science, in vaccine, but we also need to take our precautions. Wear a mask. Still wear a mask. Don't loosen the practices. And the situation in France is not very good, but it's better. It's better because we are seeing the signs of the end, the light at the end of the tunnel. But right now we are in the middle of a very, very critical phase where in northern France, in eastern France, in southern France, we have to go back to very stringent measures in order to contain the new forms of the virus. What I'm trying to say here is that we have we are going through a situation that we are all looking forward to the ending, but the end is not now, and that is the reason why, to make a long story short, the borders are still sealed and closed between our two countries. There are exceptions. There are some cases, and maybe we can get to that in the questions. But all in all, the very weeks that we are going through now are not very. It's not a conducive environment for international travels. It's difficult to say for a diplomat, for people like you who are world affairs. You are connected with the world and you want to travel, you want to move, you want to exchange, you want to dialogue. But I guess we have to be a little bit patient. That is not to say that we don't want to welcome you. As soon as possible, we will be very, very happy to welcome not only visitors from America and St. Louis and Missouri in general, but also students, scientists, business people. We want you, we need you, because we believe that when we work together, when we cooperate together, we are better and we are more effective. The life of the consulate has been very much affected by the pandemic. I used to travel across the Midwest to meet with the French community, to meet with the French companies, to meet with the Alliance Française, to visit the campuses, to honor World War II veterans who came to our rescue in the war. And unfortunately, all these activities had to be suspended, as our activities in general. We're trying to protect the French community, but let's be honest, the consulate cannot protect the French community in general. We rely on the care, we rely on the healthcare system, we rely on the information system of the local authorities. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the US government, the US administration, the mayors, the governors, the county executives, and first and foremost, the frontline workers for all they have done to protect you, to protect we, the French. And we are very, very grateful of that. Let me say a few words about the new administration in Washington, D.C., not the new administration per se, but what it means for my country, France, for my continent, Europe. President Macron has had already several conversations with President Biden, with Vice President Harris. We believe in democracy, we believe in our friendship, and when we see attacks on democracy, we suffer. Our heart is bleeding because this is about principles, but this is also about threats or challenges that we jointly face. And when we see an attack on the Capitol in Washington, D.C., we think about our own institutions, our secret institutions, institutions of democracy, the institutions of the values that we stand for. And history has shown that we have stood for these values together. But the people have spoken. The new administration is in place, and one of the very first decisions by President Biden was to bring the United States back to the climate accord, the Paris climate agreements. And for us, and when I say us, I mean not only the French, the European Union, the Europeans, and I'm sure many other countries, is very good news. It is good news to see that, again, the world is united in trying to find the solutions based on science, solutions based on creativity, solutions based on economic growth that will change our life. And this is a generational challenge to fight climate change. And maybe we have wasted a little bit of time in the past few years, but I was extremely encouraged to see all the local initiatives at the local governments level, but also at the civil society level and at the business level to adapt, to adjust, to invest in solutions for the future. It is only by international cooperation that we will tackle the climate crisis. And so this was very much welcome by France. Another dimension is the so-called transatlantic dimension, the security dimension, the NATO, EU dimension. We have seen and we have heard the new administration making commitment to be back in a way in Europe, to take all its part in seeking collective solutions. And again, we think it is good because we don't necessarily agree on everything every time. But having the United States being engaged, being involved, that's a good thing. We prefer to see the United States engaged than disengaged. And we recognize the challenge because your country has been involved in several wars, several external interventions, and we don't like it. We, the French, we are also involved in the Sahel region. It is not that we are going into Sahel because we want it or we like it, but there are some situations where there is no other option than to act. And it is even better when Americans and French act jointly. We are partners, we are allies, and there are a number of areas in the world where we are engaged in military action, in Sahel, for example, but also in diplomacy, also in science, also on climate and global issues. And we think that is good. We have worked with all US administrations, but we take as a positive sign the first commitments and options taken by the new administration. Again, it doesn't mean that we will agree on everything. You know from experience that sometimes the French can be vocal when they think they have to be. And it has been my experience as a diplomat in the past 20 plus years is that even when we disagree, we respect ourselves, we recognize one another's position, and we find the right time sometimes to disagree and then to agree. I think that's good for the United States, it's good for Europe, it's good for France. We don't consider ourselves as a country that has the same size, the same ambition, the same power as the United States. Definitely not. That is why we believe in a more united, in a more cohesive, in a more effective Europe. But we sit in the same big fora like the UN Security Council. We are part of the G20, the G7, all the big Gs. We are together with America. Maybe a last dimension regarding the international issues, the diplomatic issues of the day is the pandemic. It's COVID-19. One aspect that is very important for us, and I believe it is important for America too, is to find the right modalities for the vaccines to be available everywhere, globally available. It will be a disaster. It will be very dangerous. It will be very unfair if some part of the world will have an easy access to the vaccines and some other parts, maybe because they are poorer, they don't have an access. And we are working together to devise good solutions. We're working with African countries. We're working with some other countries, the WHO and other regional organizations. Also to rely on the local capacities and the local productions. If countries like South Africa, like Senegal, can produce their own treatments, their own medicine, their own pharma industry, and I know St. Louis is big in the pharma industry, that would be very, very good. And this is an opportunity, but sometimes institutions, sometimes countries, public opinions can be a little bit selfish. We want to go against the selfishness tendencies. And I think America shares that point with us. And it would be wonderful, for example, to see the CDC from America, but that has several locations in and areas of interventions, of operations in Africa, working with des Instituts Pasteur, which are kind of equivalent of the CDCs on the French side. And again, science, medicine, health are wonderful opportunities for working together, but not just talk about opportunities, but let's do them. And so I hope that we will see in the coming weeks even more convergence between France and America and others to guarantee the access, global access to vaccine. I need to talk a little bit about my job, our job with Isabel and with the French community, the French-speaking community, the Francophile community here in the region. I mentioned it earlier, we have a common heritage. It's wonderful to see that Sainte-Geneviève now is part of the National Parks Service. It is wonderful to see that Missouri has taken the initiatives. Missourians have stepped up to the plate and lobbied effectively the federal administration to recognize the French heritage of Missouri. It means so much to us because, again, you have done it. We are here in a supporting role and we will be happy to promote and cooperate, but this is your history. This is our joint history, but first and foremost, this is your history. And I'm thinking of Cahokia, I'm thinking of Dupont and all mines that I visited about a year and a half ago. I'm not mentioning here Paris, Missouri, because yes, it's Paris, but it's not, to the best of my knowledge, a direct consequence of the French heritage. Although it's wonderful to see that Missouri too has a Paris. One aspect that is very important and that is shared with many of you, I guess, and we are in March. March is the month of the Francophonie, the month of the French-speaking community. The Alliance Française of St. Louis is playing a very, very important role. And yes, there are institutions like the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie. It is a relatively big organization that brings together countries. And so if you look at the map of countries that are part of the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie, you will not see the United States, you will not see Missouri. But that's not the point. What is important in the context of the French-speaking community is to be inclusive. And all of you this afternoon in St. Louis who speak French or speak a little bit of French or are learning French, you are part of the family. You are part of the French-speaking family. Does it mean that French is your language, your first language. It can be your second, your third, but you are francophone by, you can be francophone by heritage, you can be francophone by choice. You are part of the family. And this is a family that has no border, that has no passport, and that is diverse. The diverse character of Francophonie is a very, very strong asset. Yes, it is part of a legacy that is also a colonial legacy, a violent legacy. But I'm speaking here, I'm pretty sure, on behalf of all the French speakers in the world. Senegalese is not less, not more Francophone than I am being French. The language, it is the language that matters. It is not the origin, it is not the DNA, it is not the passport. We are one community, and there is no first or second class citizen. I think it is a wonderful model for the world. Not that we intend to convert America to become Francophone, not at all. It has nothing to do with that. But to help convince you with the French, together with the Canadians, the Quebecois, the Senegalese, the Congolese, the Lebanese, the Laotians, the Asians, to say, okay, America, you're number one on many fields, but when it comes to learning foreign languages, you're not number one. You're not even number two. It will be in your interest to make more efforts to learn foreign languages. Again, not to replace English, but to complement and to help you to enable you navigate the world and interact with the rest of the world in all fields, not just language and culture, not just education, but also business, but also science, but also innovation, anything, love, as Isabel was saying earlier. And this is a message for everyone, but in particular for the youth at school. Don't hesitate to learn French. By the way, there is a French program in an elementary school in St. Louis. We call it immersion program, where young kids learn math in French. And they don't come from French-speaking families, but they learn the curriculum in a foreign language, and it works. But also later in your studies, don't hesitate to take French. It will give you the opportunity to travel to all the continents in the world. And again, not just in France. But this is also a message for their parents, because sometimes too often I hear in some circles that it's nice to learn foreign languages, including French, because French-speaking world is diverse and it's beautiful and it's interesting, but it is not providing job. Yes, it does provide job. It can give you a career to speak foreign languages, and that is the point I would like to stress to you and make a mention of a conference that we are organizing with partners in the coming weeks to bring together the students who learn French, the companies, American, French, Swiss, Canadian, who are looking for workforce that is good in the so-called soft skills and can make a difference in a company. I will stop here maybe because it's 4:30. There are many other dimensions that I would have loved to touch upon. Maybe one last one at this stage is business. The business between France and America not only is good, but it is mutually beneficial, and it is growing. It is growing in terms of trade, it is growing in terms of investments, and Missouri is not different. I checked the latest numbers, not that I want to bore you with numbers, but just be aware that, for example, French companies, and Denis has mentioned a few of them, account for about 12,000 jobs in Missouri. That's not minimal. That's pretty big. And the companies that are headquartered in France but invest in Missouri, are job provider, but also parts of the network of connections that exist between Missouri and France. And I don't make a difference. I don't make a difference between education, culture, science, business, tourism. We all go together to try to develop our relations, to bring more connections local to local. You don't have to go through Paris. No, it can be local to local. It can be Paris, Missouri, and maybe Paris, France. My point is, it is the heart that talks. It is the heart that makes the mountains move, and that's I want to be a part of the adventure with you. Diplomacy would be nothing without the people-to-people connections, and that is what we're trying to achieve with you.
Thank you very much, Consul General Lacroix. We have several questions for you, and I want to try to squeeze them all in, so maybe we'll keep all of them short and to the point here. You mentioned the importance of the French language, the beauty of the French language, and how the French government has been trying to promote global speaking of French. Specifically, there's the Château de Villers-Cotterêts near Paris. Can you give us an update on that facility that President Macron had established to help promote French language, please?
Thank you. Villers-Cotterêts is a small town in Picardy, northeast France. It is famous in France because this is the place, the castle of Villers-Cotterêts, where King Francis I in the 16th century signed an edict, a decree, an order that made the French language the official language of the French kingdom. Until then, French was not the official language. It was considered as a communication language, some form of Creole, a Creolization of Latin, but Latin was the official language. And Villers-Cotterêts is also, by the way, famous because this is the birthplace of Alexandre Dumas, the author of The Three Musketeers, and so many other fantastic and well-known and novels that have been adapted to cinema. President Macron, actually being someone born in Picardy, has decided to make the old palace of Villers-Cotterêts a cité internationale de la francophonie. Would like to make this old place, this old town that is faced with many challenges. It's not a big city, and people there are looking for for more opportunities. And many of them have to leave, actually. Some of them have to leave, and so it's also part of the revitalization of rural areas, and a subject that is very well known in Missouri as well. I think another thing that connects us. President Macron would like to make the castle of Villers-Cotterêts the headquarters, the seat of maybe not an institution, but a place. I don't think it's going to be a museum. It's going to be like a forum that will highlight the history, but also the advantage of francophonie, and be part of this international network. I have no information regarding the timeline because I understand it costs a lot of money and it's going to take some time. As you know, we also have to rebuild Notre Dame and other places of historic importance. But I thank you very much for asking the question. It's a pleasure to talk about Villers-Cotterêts. I was not expecting that.
We have many more questions, so we'll need to speed up our answers here. But here are a series about COVID. Let me just go through the list, and then you can pick up the ones that you like. So there are some questions about travel. Can U.S. citizens travel to France now? When will travel restrictions be relaxed? Is France helping distribute vaccines to its former colonies, especially Côte d'Ivoire and Senegal? Where is France on level of vaccinations? Will France when will France reach a herd immunity, and how will this impact foreign direct investment? So several questions, and I can repeat them if you'd like, but I just kind of want to give you the flavor there.
If only we knew, the evolution of the virus, the timeline, but we know some, we don't know it all. For example, vaccination. Even if you are vaccinated, it is not proven yet that you cannot become contagious. And that is one of the reasons why, and sometimes people see a contradiction, but there is no contradiction. While we are making progress, while we are vaccinating people, the borders remain basically closed. Yes, there are still some flights and some possibilities to travel, but I don't want to waste your time here and giving the specifics and the details, but basically the borders are closed. This is temporary. We look forward to reaching a level of safety where we will be able to reopen the border. And America, on its side, will also be able to reopen the border because, you know, it's like, as we say in French, fermé à double tour. The borders are still here and there, and that's a problem. And I know that a number of our countrymen and women living in Missouri are frustrated because they would like to go back to France because someone of their family is, he may not be in not so good shape, and unfortunately, it's difficult. One question regarding the vaccination in Africa. We are working on providing vaccine in France, but also taking initiative on the international level to make vaccines accessible not only to former French colonies, to all countries in the world, and especially the poorer countries that need vaccines. Yes.
And will there be any impact on foreign direct investment, in your opinion? Do you anticipate an economic recovery once the vaccine is distributed, or what are you seeing on foreign direct investment coming from France into the United States, or vice versa, United States into France?
I am not an expert, but what I hear from the people who know is that there may be some decisions that have been postponed. And that makes a lot of sense, because if you can travel and the anticipations are not so good, you have to wait. But as far as I understand, the decisions of investment from France to America and from America to France in the past, let's say 12 months, may have been frozen, but not canceled. And that's very good. That's very good. Yeah. I believe the anticipations are pretty good, and hopefully, but I cannot predict it. When this is over, the trend will be like that, and that's good. That's good. We hear from many businessmen and women in France impatience. They want to come. They want to meet their partner. Yes, they can connect with Zoom, but they want to meet their partners. They want to sense if they can make business. But yes, we anticipate very, very positive trends.
Yeah, good news. I'm working a big project with one of your employees right now. So it is happening. We just need to get the scale going. And I think with COVID going in a rear window, it will pick up very, very quickly. Next question is about refugees. And the question is, can you please tell us how France is adjusting to refugees in France, and what are the French people doing to provide services and programs for these people?
When we talk about refugees, we talk about families, men and women and children who are fleeing their own country, not because they want to leave, but because they are forced to leave. We're talking about refugees and not necessarily migrants, people who are looking for opportunities. And so the refugee crisis across Europe has had links with the conflict in Syria, the conflicts in the Middle East in general, but also in the Horn of Africa, Somalia, in Sudan, in Eritrea. It's more dictatorship than conflict, but problems. And conflicts in West Africa as well, Boko Haram, and so on and so forth. So we are talking about people who are looking for asylum. By international rules and by our constitutions, we have to grant asylum to asylum seekers. But that is not to say that countries in Europe have to accept all the peoples who are knocking at our door. And it is an enormous challenge. It is an enormous challenge here in the United States as well, because the governments have the responsibility to fulfill their international obligations, but at the same time, respect the will of the people and of the public opinion. And it is not a mystery that we have seen a rise in anti-immigrants sentiment in some quarters of our populations in Europe, in the United States, elsewhere. You see some migration problem in Africa too. It's a balance that needs to be stricken. But yes, according to the law, an asylum seeker who has filed an application for asylum receives some form of support by the French government. The time his application is being processed, and if that person receives the official document making him or her a refugee, it will be assisted. But of course, the only long-term solution is for refugees to find jobs and to learn the language and to become part of the community, and maybe at the end of the process become French. That's the way we are in France. And the other aspect, which is very much connected, and it has to do with diplomacy, is to help the countries that are faced with the people, the population, with crisis, with conflict, with dictatorship, find a solution to that problem so that they can stay in their country. It's probably better.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do, and we need more people like you helping out with these problems. So thank you very much. A couple of questions about culture, shifting gears here. This is kind of a fun one here. You've lived in the United States for 3 years. Is there something that from the French culture that you wish we had more of here in the United States? And then a related question is, how can we increase these cultural exchanges? And we've talked about politics, we've talked about economics a little bit, but how do we continue to maintain and strengthen the cultural exchanges? So what do you miss from France here, and how can we do more cultural exchanges?
I think the thing I miss the most, and I believe it is the same for my wife, my children, is the boulangerie across the corner. It is possible to find good bread here in America, but not everywhere. And even in a big city like Chicago, if you want to find good bread, you have to travel for half an hour or maybe more. That is impossible in France. You find good bread you have to walk 5 minutes and there is a good boulangerie. So it's not a cliche. It's a reality. It's not a stereotype. The French love their baguettes. That's absolutely true.
No, I agree. I miss pain au chocolat. Yes, it's very.
And the pain au chocolat and the croissant. The cliche of the moustache and the beret, yes, but the baguette, no, it's not a cliche. The other things that it's not something that we miss, but it's a difference that I have sensed in living in America in the past 3 years, is that once in a year or maybe twice a year, let's say once, Americans' families gather around the table, take time to cook and to share moments and take their time. It's called Thanksgiving, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful holiday. But what you call Thanksgiving, we call it Sundays. Every Sunday, in French families, maybe not every Sunday, maybe not every French family, but we take time to gather, to have the grandparents, the parents, the children, spending good time together. Not watching football, not watching TV. We do watch TV as well. We have TV, we have power and electricity, but but spending time in, you know, having good time, and that's a product we would like to export more, because I think the world would be better off. The second question you asked, Dennis, was about
well, how do we facilitate these cultural
yes.
exchanges? How do we share the great literature, the great art, the great music from France with America, and vice versa?
I think we should take advantage of what it is available now. Netflix is a great it's a great provider of cultural exchanges. I've noticed that Netflix, for example, and I'm not here to, you know, to promote Netflix, but it's just an illustration, offers a lot of programs produced in Europe. It is through Netflix that I discovered that Poland has excellent directors, actors, and series and movies. I knew a little bit about it, but not so much. The series Lupin is extremely popular in the United States, but across the world. It's wonderful because it shows Paris, it shows our culture, it echoes our literature, because one of the clear objective of the series is to convince the young generations to read books, and to have taken Omar Sy, a French actor with Senegalese background, to be the new embodiment of Lupin in a way that is so natural and with a lot of sense. I think it is very powerful. It is very effective. It's not thanks to Netflix. We don't have to thank Netflix. We have to congratulate the actor, the producer, the director. But I hope that the young generations will, for example, watch this series and take an interest there on. They will pick here and there and say, oh yes, I want to visit this city. I want to go to Normandy. I want to know more about Maurice Leblanc or Arsène Lupin. I want to know more about Omar Sy. Who is this French who doesn't look like me? And so that's the kind of thing we should do more, but not in not in a commercial way. We're not here to make business. We are here to take advantage of the technology, of the entertainment culture, but to give more sense and provide more opportunities to know one another. When I was at school learning English, sometimes you had teachers who were very strict and they want to stick just to the books and to history. No, come on, if you are a teenager, you want to listen to music and you want to study the lyrics. And I hope teachers now do that, and that's, elicit more. The youth, that's very important.
I want to call out our good friend Isabel at the Alliance Française. I mean, that's part of their mission as well, is to promote culture and exchange, and she does a great job at the Alliance Française, bringing in programs and speakers. And of course, with COVID, it's slowed down, but there are opportunities online. Netflix, what's really neat is that you can put the subtitles in French, so you can listen as well as have the subtitles below, which is a great way to facilitate the language learning. Just a technical question: how is your office in Chicago open? That's one of the questions that we received.
The office is open. I am in my office right now. We take extra precautions. We are super cautious with regard to the protection of our staff, the protection of our visitors. So visitors can come only if they have an appointment. Otherwise, you can't come. But the office is running, and there have been periods in the past year when we had to close because there was a stay-at-home order. But still, the office was still running because the staff was working and working pretty hard, actually, and I'm very grateful to them.
You talked about the boulangerie earlier. Here's a question about wine. What are your thoughts about the high duties and the tariffs
I was born in Burgundy, but in the part of Burgundy that produced the most affordable wine in the Auxerre area. It is the area of Auxerre, of Chablis, of Irancy. And so I'm used to drinking good wine at an affordable price. And it breaks my heart when I see that in some and the wine that should be accessible is not so accessible because of tariffs. And it breaks my heart to see that the money that people will spend will not go to the producers, but will go to the government's pockets. I think the producers should be retributed, and we should make their living out of their production, and not provide an opportunity for governments. And I'm not talking about one specific government; it can be in general, to take advantage of them. So it's frustrating. I hope that negotiations, discussions will between our countries will find a solution so that the people of America can enjoy good wine from France at an affordable price.
Maybe we need another Boston wine party instead of a Boston tea party. A couple of fun questions that have come in. Yeah, we'll try that. We probably won't be as good for the sea life or the environment, so we should not do that. A couple of fun questions here for you, Guillaume. Excuse me, Consul General Lacroix. The race, the next Paris-Nice race to the sun. Are you familiar with this race? It starts in a couple of weeks. It starts March 7th. And do you have a prediction on who will be the winners? Mm-hmm.
It's cycling.
Yes, cycling. Yes.
Yes, I living in Burgundy. I'm on the on the route of Paris-Nice, because we're not in the middle, but we're somewhere in between. And so I used to go and see sometimes when it was not far from my village, the race. I'm unable to make any prediction. As a fan, it is unbelievable for me to when I think about it, that the Tour de France, that's a different, but that's another important race, has not been won by a French athlete since maybe 1989. It's unbelievable.
Are you familiar with our director of the French the St. Louis Symphony here is a French person? Did you know this? Stéphane Villeneuve. Have you met him yet?
I know who he is, but I haven't had the pleasure of meeting him yet. I hope I will get a chance to meet him. I know he has some connection with Brussels, I believe. My daughter was born in Brussels. That's why I'm thinking of it. It's another illustration of the wonderful connections between our two countries. I'm sure the maestro does not wave the French flag, but he certainly brings French flair.
I saw him and he came in for one of the performances wearing the St. Louis Blues jersey. It was incredible. So, a couple more questions. We're bumping up against the time here, but really want to say thank you. It's been incredible. You've done a great service to the Midwest. You've been a great friend to Missouri. I've appreciated your friendship and your support. Can you tell us, one of the questions that has come in, I don't know if this is secret or if you can answer the question, but your term is coming to an end. Do you know what your next role will be to support the French government?
I don't know, Dennis. I wish I knew. My family wish they knew. But this is the life of a diplomat. In a way, it's a life on the road or in the airports. You get one assignment. You know that in the 4 years after knowing your assignment, you know where you will be posted, and you don't know what comes next. I don't know. I hope I will be able to serve the same interest in a different capacity. So far in my career, I have worked on African affairs, I've worked on European affairs and United States. So maybe it will be be connected with one of these three. Maybe it will be a new adventure. I wish I knew, and I don't. And I will certainly leave the Midwest with a heavy heart. But we're only in March, so a lot can happen since until I leave in the summer. But thank you for your very, very generous and kind words.
Oh, I hope our paths will cross again. You've been a very good Consul General, and I will say you're the most active in visiting our state of all the Consul Generals of all the countries and of all the French predecessors. So thank you for your hard work and interest. Couple of quick questions. Here's one a little bit personal, and maybe you can answer this, but someone wants to know where you live in Chicago. Do you live downtown? And what do you like about living in Chicago?
I live on Lakeshore Drive downtown. It's called Streeterville. It is a wonderful place. We have a view on the lake, and every morning I don't mind waking up early because there is a sunrise, and every sunrise is different. So it's wonderful. It's a blessing. It's a blessing. My family and I have enjoyed so much Chicago. It's a great city to raise kids. It's a great city for families. It's a great city for singles. You can find anything that exists on earth in a way or another. You can find it in Chicago, even baguettes, even so they are scarce. I like the city. I have to admit, I was born in a rural area, a village of about 700 people. So I love big cities, but I need to be in the nature. I need to travel. Maybe it's one of the reasons why I've traveled so much across the Midwest, and I love to see farms and barns and horses and corn. I like it. I like the cornfields. So I miss that a little bit, but I can't complain. It's a blessing.
Yes, I agree. I grew up on a small area in rural Iowa, and I share what you're saying. Last question: where did you get your cool glasses?
They are made in France. But thank you for the question. I'm going to blush. It was made in France. It's actually I don't know if I can call it a startup, but it's a family company. I don't know the owner. I don't know the designer, but I know it's a couple. They sell on internet. They come from the Ardèche department, and I believe it has the meaning it has for me. It's a connection with where I come from. I come from the woods, so they're made of wood.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Well,
from the bush.
Great. Well, we're at 5 o'clock, and I want to be respectful of your busy schedule. We really appreciate you taking the time. Many people have sent in comments here that they appreciated your friendship. They appreciated that you listened, that you visited us, that you've done a great job, and that you represent your country very, very well. So I wish I had time to go through all of these and read them, but we're at 5 o'clock. I do want to say thank you. I also, for everyone that's participating, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate this. We encourage you to become members of the World Affairs Council. We encourage you to become members of the Alliance Française. We thank the Alliance Française for their support. And we have lots of events throughout the year. Our next one is March 25th. It's part of the Great Decisions program. It's called, the topic this time is The End of Globalization with a question mark. That will be March 25th at noon. So we hope you can join us for that event. And on that note, I want to say thank you, merci beaucoup, and we will end the program at this time. Thank you, sir.
Merci beaucoup, merci à vous. À bientôt à Saint-Louis.
À bientôt.